I don't know about where you're from, but here in the UK, we love an underdog. So the little guy who came from nothing, had no idea what he was about to get himself into, and is thrust into the arms of destiny and becomes a hero, whether he wants to or not. Or just generally does well for himself, does something important, something that can change the tide of history. And this actually got me wondering about The Lord of the Rings, specifically the movies. Now, we know because of the way movies work and because the trilogy of books itself is roughly this thick, I would say. Because of that, we know that Peter Jackson couldn't include every single character in those 3 movies. Otherwise, each one would be like 5 hours long, I'm pretty sure. So I thought today a cool idea would be to take a look at some of the, I want to say minor characters. In fact, I was almost going to call this video the minor characters of Lord of the Rings and Tolkien, but arguably some of the characters that I'm about to mention are not minor at all. In fact, they're pretty major and they just weren't included for timing reasons, pacing reasons, whatever it might be. But yes, take a look at the unsung heroes of Lord of the Rings, specifically from the books, and the actions that they took and the impact that it had on the Fellowship, their course, and how it changed everything for better, for worse, however you might think of it. I wonder how many we can squeeze into 10 minutes. Let's give it a try. Hopefully this will be an interesting one for people who've only seen the movies, which is totally okay, by the way. I know the movies are responsible for directing people towards the books as an afterthought, or maybe you just prefer the movies in general because you like visual storytelling. Totally okay, I understand. And as a matter of fact, in the movies themselves, there are all kinds of relatively minor characters around the Fellowship that push them along on their journey that you already know of. So Haldir, for instance, in Lothlorien. I don't think I could call Arwen a minor character in terms of how much she does in the trilogy as a whole, which is more than in the books. Alright, let's see what my research has brought me on these minor characters. I'm trying to go in chronological order, but it might not be completely correct. Bear with me. There are actually several Hobbit characters in the Shire who help Frodo, Sam, Merry and Pippin on their way out towards their path that Gandalf is guiding them on. First of all, Gaffer Gamgee. Now he's quite a legend. He, albeit unwittingly, sends one of the Black Riders off to Bucklebury Ferry, only because he thought that Frodo and Sam had already left the Shire. I mean, we know now that that wasn't the case and they actually had to get on the ferry to make their way out towards Bree. But if Gaffer Gamgee hadn't sent that Black Rider to Bucklebury, then they wouldn't have had to race for the ferry, they wouldn't have jumped on it, and perhaps they wouldn't have gone to Bree in the first place. Does that make him an unsung hero, or does that make him a troublemaker? I'm not quite sure, but he's on this list anyway. How about Farmer Maggot as well? Now, in the Fellowship of the Ring, the only real glimpse that we get of Farmer Maggot is his pick, shovel, whatever it is. The thing that he's waving in the air as he's chasing Merry and Pippin, anyway, through the fields. But actually, in the books, what he does as well is sends the Black Rider off to Crick Hollow to waylay him as the hobbits are making their way onto Bucklebury Ferry. He actually helps them get there. So he's not so bad, really. He has their best interests at heart, I think. He just doesn't want them to be scoundrels. Now, following on from that, we also have Fatty Bolger. Once Farmer Maggot sends the Black Rider off to Crick Hollow, Fatty Bolger waylays him there, and the hobbits are able to escape freely and get out of the Shire altogether. So, as much as they grumble about the 4 hobbits and their shenanigans, there are several hobbits within the Shire, within Hobbiton, who actually aid their escape and send them off, propel them towards their fateful journey that would end in the destroying of the ring. So the hobbits find themselves in Bree, a town of humans and also some hobbits. Grim, dark, a bit scary. Some of them have never been outside the Shire before. And at the Inn of the Prancing Pony, we find Barleyman Butterbur. Now, he was there in the Fellowship of the Ring, if you remember, with a really fantastic moustache, if I remember right. But he did have a slightly bigger role in the books. and a kind of a knock-on effect that once again helped shape some of the events that would happen in Bree, such as the hobbits meeting Aragorn, for instance, and Frodo using the ring and becoming invisible in front of all of them. Now, why is Butterbur important as a minor character? It's all to do with a letter that Gandalf wrote that was actually never delivered. In that letter, Gandalf warned Frodo that he might not return when he promised, and that if he ever came to Bree, he should trust Butterbur. It was also detailing Strider and that Frodo might meet him in Bree, and also several warnings to Frodo, such as the fact that he shouldn't wear the ring again and to avoid travelling during night, and also a little bit of text describing Strider and also letting Frodo know his real identity. So, a pretty important letter if you think about it, an important letter to not be delivered at all. But the way it went was that Butterbur couldn't find someone who would go to Hobbiton and deliver the letter, and then he forgot about it. Well done, good job. But if he had sent the letter, so much might have changed. Frodo might have been almost all the way to Rivendell then by the time the Black Riders even got close to the Shire. And actually, Butterbur also encouraged Frodo to go to the common room, and he wouldn't let Aragorn in to see him. And if he hadn't done all those things, then Frodo probably wouldn't have put on the ring and exposed his invisibility to everyone who was in the pub at the time. It's like the butterfly effect, isn't it? Just one little flap of the wings and the whole story, the trajectory of the whole thing could have changed completely. We spoke a little bit about Arwen earlier and her greater role in the films, which I don't mind, and also Liv Tyler does an amazing job and she's a perfect Arwen. But in the books, and I feel like this is a fact that a lot of people have heard of since, it's not actually Arwen who saves Frodo after he's been stabbed at Weathertop and takes him over the river and towards Rivendell. That is actually the elf Glorfindel, who, if it's the same Glorfindel from further back in Tolkien's lore and the Silmarillion, is one of the most powerful elves in all of Middle-earth, behind maybe Galadriel, I would say. Maybe Glorfindel deserves his own entire video on his lore. Let me know if that's something you would like, actually. Mental note. But yes, it's Glorfindel who takes Frodo over the Bruinen towards Rivendell. And what would have happened if he didn't show up? Or Arwen, for that matter. Frodo would have died, someone else may have tried to take the ring and failed, the ring would have never made it to Mount Doom, the world would have exploded. Radagast the Brown. Now, I know we've seen him in The Hobbit, but he actually does make an appearance in the Lord of the Rings books. Why is he so important as a minor-ish character? Well, if you remember, Gandalf was actually imprisoned at Orthanc, right at the top, and remember he spoke to a little moth, sent it off, and was saved by one of the eagles. Well, that's actually related, so if you know a bit about Radagast's backstory, I'll be very brief, TLDR version. He is a Maiar and a servant of Yavanna, who is the Valar of nature, all things that grow, all animals. And you can see a bit of that in The Hobbit. He's surrounded by lots of very cute critters and he takes care of them. But what he was actually able to do in The Lord of the Rings was unwittingly helping to defeat Saruman's plans. He actually passed on Gandalf's request to the animals and just mentioned that he required information and help at Isengard. And then I guess that message went up the chain towards the eagles, who swooped in and saved Gandalf from his fate. Without that, he would still maybe be imprisoned at Orthanc, and who knows what would have happened to him. Something terrible. There would have been dire consequences. How about Beregond, who is a captain of Gondor? I believe Beregond is actually a favourite of book readers, just for his role, and he was just pretty awesome as a character. In the books, it was actually Beregond who was assigned to help Pippin when he became a guard of the Citadel. I can understand why he was maybe cut out of the movies and that role given to Faramir, but they had quite a nice relationship, I think. What Beregond did was actually prevent the burning of Faramir by his father Denethor. Instead of remaining at his post, which was his duty, he rushed up there as soon as Pippin told him what was going on and that Denethor had put Faramir on a pyre. And Beregond actually ended up slaying some of the guard around that pyre and saved Faramir, pulled him off the burning wood, And once Faramir was taken to the Houses of Healing, Beregond actually stood watch over him until he became well again. Without him, the line of stewards would have ended, without knowing, of course, that Aragorn was there and would have become king, hopefully. But yes, because of him, Faramir is still alive, and that's a thumbs up from me because Faramir is one of my favourites. But there are so many other characters that don't fit into a 10-minute video that I would love to go into more detail on. I also have written down here Gunbury Gun, who is the leader of the Druidine line of humans. And of course, I feel like there's a glaring hole in this video. Tom Bombadil and Goldberry, who, once again, arguably are not minor characters in any way. But I would love to do a whole video on those two as well, what they did in the books and their impact on everything that happened throughout The Lord of the Rings. So many theories, so many suppositions, but that's all I'm going to squeeze into this video for today. If I've missed anybody, and I'm 99.9% sure that I have, let me know in the comments. Are there any unsung heroes or characters from the books that had a little effect on the Fellowship that changed the outlook for them completely? Let me know what you think. Please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. As always, it means the world to me. Thank you so much for sticking around and listening to my lore ramblings and ideas. And I can't wait to see you in the next video. Bye.